I picked a chocolate cake for Emily because she loves chocolate. I asked her, "You like chocolate, don't you, Mom?" But she warned me that eating it might be dangerous for her. My daughter, Jennifer, swapped my cake with Bob's, and I reluctantly took a bite. Jennifer started eating her cake as well. Bob was bragging about reserving the cake a month ago and how yummy the crushed nuts on top were. Suddenly, he began to choke, turned red, and struggled to breathe. He collapsed on the floor. My name is Emily. I'm 36 years old, and I work for a food inspection company. I live with my husband, who is 2 years older than me, and our 7-year-old daughter, Jennifer. I met Bob in a college club, and after we both got jobs, we started dating and got married 2 years later. A year after our marriage, we had our daughter, Jennifer. She was a late bloomer, starting to walk at the age of 2. We got her checked at various hospitals, but they found no issues. They said it was just individual differences and recommended waiting to see her progress. Bob was initially worried about Jennifer, but eventually became frustrated with her slow progress and began to ignore her. My mother-in-law, Diane, disliked Jennifer, thinking she had a disability, and never held her. Only my father-in-law was affectionate to her, often telling me how unique and wonderful she was, which made me happy. Bob was kind until we got married, but with Jennifer's issues, he became grumpy at home. He would slam tables and stomp loudly on the floor when things didn't go his way, making me scared. Bob's behavior stressed me out, leading to hormonal imbalances and menopause, preventing us from having more children. I remember sobbing with my head buried in the pillow. Bob became harsher, nitpicking about everything from cleaning to cooking. Every complaint was accompanied by a loud noise, and I was constantly jumpy and apologetic. Jennifer watched Bob's tantrums with a puzzled expression, but never seemed scared or cried. Bob treated Jennifer as if she were strange. Jennifer didn't speak much but quickly learned to read. She would focus on reading for hours, even encyclopedias and children's books. I believed she understood complex words. When Jennifer was about to start elementary school, they suggested placing her in a special education class due to her lack of speech. Bob was furious and demanded that it be fixed, storming off to the bedroom. As I held my head in my hands, Jennifer gently patted my back. Diane called the next day, expressing embarrassment at Jennifer attending such a class. Neither Bob nor Diane genuinely cared about Jennifer. It was all about their reputation. After consulting with counselors, school teachers, and municipal officers, Jennifer was placed in regular classes, despite my belief that the special needs class might be a better fit. I couldn't suggest it due to Bob and Diane's objections. When Jennifer started elementary school, I had some free time, and my temp agency offered me a permanent position. The job felt fulfilling compared to the stifling atmosphere at home. When I discussed it with Bob, he hesitated but asked me to take care of the house like before. He wanted help from Diane too. Diane began visiting our house frequently, making sarcastic remarks about the mess and my cleaning habits, which made me more meticulous, but she continued to complain. I endured the bullying from Diane for weeks, but I couldn't handle it anymore. I told her I could manage the house on my own, and she reluctantly agreed to stop coming over. However, right after that, Bob started spending more time at his parents' house. A little later, when Jennifer was in 2nd grade, my father-in-law, who had always been kind to her, suddenly passed away. At the funeral, I found it strange that Bob and Diane occasionally glanced at each other and laughed. It felt odd because funerals are usually sad occasions. With my father-in-law gone, Jennifer lost her only ally, and I felt uneasy. Juggling housework, childcare, and a full-time job had worn me out, and I fell sick with a fever. I asked Bob for help with dinner, but he refused, saying he didn't want to catch a cold from me. He stayed at his parents' house for a whole week. As I started to feel better, I was offered a promotion as a section manager at work. I was thrilled, but it also felt like a heavy burden considering my responsibilities at home. When I talked to Bob about it, he insisted I continue with the household duties and belittled my abilities. The next day, Diane came over to the house and complained about its state, saying it was messy because I didn't put effort into housework. She inspected everything and made me redo tasks like wiping windows and folding laundry. Every time Diane nagged, Jennifer started talking to her. She asked Diane about happiness hormones and explained complex medical concepts, leaving Diane confused and exhausted. On my birthday, Bob returned from a business trip with a cake, the first time he'd ever bought something for me since we got married. He thanked me and said, "Thanks for everything. I love you." I was stunned, wondering what had gotten into him this time. "I'll put this cake in the fridge and we can have it later," Bob said in a sugary sweet way that made me uncomfortable. Jennifer, seeming unhappy about something, took a bottle of water from the fridge, glanced at the cake, and went to her room. So Bob and I decided to eat dinner without her. During the meal, Bob gave me awkward compliments and said he'd help with housework from now on. Although I felt uneasy, I nodded to avoid upsetting him. After dinner, as I was cleaning up, Bob took the cake from the fridge and told me not to worry about it. He served the cake and brought it to the table, which I found a bit creepy. Bob got me a chocolate cake, knowing it was Emily's favorite because I liked chocolate. Feeling uncomfortable being alone with him, I decided to fetch Jennifer and went to her room. She was on my old computer, looking for something urgently. She warned me not to eat the cake, saying, "Trust me, Mom, don't eat it right now." Her desperation convinced me to trust her. Jennifer led me back to the dining room, but when I said we didn't have forks, Bob cheerfully went to get them. That's when Jennifer urgently whispered to me that I'd die if I ate the cake. She quickly switched our slices of cake, and Bob came back with forks, proudly talking about reserving the cake a month in advance and how good it was. Suddenly, Bob started choking, turned red, foamed at the mouth, and collapsed to the floor. It seemed like an allergic reaction. Both Bob and I had buckwheat allergies, but there shouldn't have been any buckwheat in the cake we were eating. Jennifer calmly told me to call 911 and handed me her phone. I followed her instructions and also hit Bob on the back as she told me to do. After I called 911, the ambulance came, and they took Bob to the hospital. He was out of danger after receiving treatment, but they kept him there for a few days as a precaution. I wondered how Jennifer knew something really bad was going to happen. After completing the hospital paperwork, Jennifer showed me a wrapper from buckwheat cookies she found in the trash. She explained that the cake Bob brought home had a half-peeled sticker, and she checked the trash, finding an unfamiliar wrapper online, discovering it contained buckwheat flour. I shuddered, thinking if it weren't for Jennifer, I might have eaten the cake and ended up in the hospital. I thought about calling the police, but Jennifer warned me that reporting it might make me a suspect. She went into Bob's study, searching for clues. She found a notebook detailing the plan, involving my father-in-law and Diane. The note mentioned my birthday, and it became clear they were plotting against me. I clenched the notebook, feeling a mix of anger and fear. Realizing their evil intentions, I vowed not to forgive Bob and Diane. Jennifer comforted me, promising to find evidence and protect me. Despite the lack of concrete proof, she was determined to expose them. Encouraged by her determination, I nodded, ready to fight back, and we both held onto each other's hands tightly. I was determined to protect myself and avenge my father-in-law for Jennifer and me. We planned to confront Bob and Diane. First, we had to lure them to our house. I asked Diane for Bob's favorite recipes, pretending I wanted to cook for him after his hospital stay. She came over, and while I learned the recipes, Jennifer checked her purse and found the buckwheat cookies. Next day, I took one cookie to work for a composition test, using my knowledge from my job at a food inspecting company. A few days later, Bob was discharged from the hospital. I told Diane I was preparing a special dinner for his discharge and asked her to bring Bob. While waiting, Jennifer and I prepared a table full of Bob's favorite dishes. When they arrived, Jennifer greeted them and led them to the table. Bob and Diane enjoyed the meal until they noticed something strange. They found seasoning on the table that matched the one mixed with the buckwheat cookies. They stopped eating, puzzled. I teased them about the seasoning, claiming my father-in-law had told me about it. I asked Jennifer to sprinkle it on their food, but they freaked out, saying it was unknown stuff. I calmly revealed that the seasoning was the same ingredient used in the cake and buckwheat cookies. I showed them documents proving the match and Bob's notebook detailing their sinister plan. They denied it at first, but when confronted with evidence, they confessed. Bob said my father-in-law was in their way, disapproving of their close relationship. To get rid of him, they mixed the cookies into the seasoning, causing his death. Their justifications were selfish, revealing their cruel intentions. I couldn't believe it when Bob and Diane admitted to trying the same dangerous plan on me as they did with my father-in-law. They said I was in their way because I also had a buckwheat allergy. I told them I was going to call the police and submit the evidence. Suddenly, Bob stood up, grabbed the copied notebook, crumpled it, and swallowed it. Diane, Jennifer, and I watched in shock. But Jennifer calmly revealed that it was just a copy, and the real notebook was elsewhere. She had secretly recorded their conversation from the start using a hidden voice recorder under the table. Bob realized their plan had failed, and Diane was furious. Jennifer and I were determined to protect me and bring them to justice. I started calling the police, and both Bob and Diane begged for forgiveness. Jennifer then explained how their plan had many mistakes and wouldn't have worked because Bob was too close to his mother. I covered Jennifer's mouth, and she agreed not to get involved with people like them anymore. When the police arrived, Bob and Diane cried and screamed, making it hard for the officers. The evidence, including the copied notes, the voice recording, and Bob's purchase history of buckwheat cookies, led to their conviction, including the matter with my father-in-law. After their arrest, I divorced Bob, and they lost their homes and income. I set up a memorial for my father-in-law. Jennifer also revealed an IQ test result, showing she had an IQ of 135, which is considered gifted. She transferred to a school for gifted children, where she felt comfortable studying what interested her. Living with Jennifer was joyful and fulfilling. People said I looked younger, my menstrual cycle returned, and I felt happier. Jennifer hugged me often, saying it released oxytocin, the happy hormone. I didn't know where oxytocin came from, but it made us both happy. We decided to live together, keeping our smiles bright.